you have the freakiest athlete on the planet on one side, and then you have the Knicks, who haven't won in 50-plus years and haven't had a championship in their building for 30 years almost, and the president showing up and all the A-list stars. I mean, this has been, thus far, an amazing 3 games. But if I'm the Knicks, I know that the pressure is on tonight. They got to win this game tonight, because if they don't win this game tonight and you got to go back to San Antonio tied, I think you're in some big trouble. What do you think?
God, this is a big game, man.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we talk about throughout the season, look, you're going through a week in February and you're saying this is a big game, because it is a big game for February 12th, whatever, right? But this is a really big game, because if the Knicks win this game, I don't see how they're losing 3 in a row. I mean, we definitely could be back here for 6, but I can't see the Knicks. I can't see the Knicks losing 3 in a row. I mean, they haven't lost 3 for a month. So if the Knicks win tonight, I think you can start the party, the parade planning, and I'm not joking around. Like, I think it's that way. If the Spurs win, I just know that this Knicks team was a flawed team for a lot of the season, and if the Spurs win, there's going to be some demons that are going to pop up, because this Knicks team, a couple of times during the year, lost its way. And I think they're still in good shape. All of their fundamentals tell me they're going to be fine, but also the Knicks fan base is, they're a little fragile. So it's a big freaking game.
By the way, speaking of the Knicks fan base, Wendy, because last year, I want to say it was last year, you were in New York and you had left the arena, and you all the fans were kind of on you outside the arena, and I said, no, don't touch my Wendy. That's where kind of my love affair happened. Are you good? I mean, or are you just getting into cars underneath the arena and pulling out, or are you still walking these streets after these games?
I mean, I'm not going to reveal my travel plans, if you don't mind, Cappy.
Gotcha.
Let me just say
why are you asking him
because
that?
George,
seriously?
Because, George, if anybody goes near my Wendy, I get on a plane, I come cross-country, and I go full Wendy bodyguard if I have to. That's why.
I will just say this. I think the atmosphere of the fans in the Garden throughout this season and throughout these playoffs has been wonderful. I really think that the team – these fans love this team. They don't just root for them. They love these players. They love what they're about. This has been the same core now for 3-4 years, which in the NBA is an eternity. And these guys will be Knick legends for the rest of their lives.
If they win.
I think outside.
Oh, I don't even think they have to win.
No, you don't think so?
No.
Well, the standard is not that high.
Do you agree with that, Brian?
Yeah. I mean, all the guys who are sitting around the court,
they
like,
didn't win.
Bill Bradley and Walt Frazier are around, but, most of them they didn't win. The situation outside the Garden in the streets, obviously the majority of it is good-natured, but outside the Garden in the streets, there's a different element, unfortunately. Look, it's a giant city. That's the nature of it. In general, the entire city is energized, and that's a net positive. But there are Knicks fans who they imbibe a little bit, and it brings out the worst in them. And so you just have to be a little bit aware of that.
All right. Well, I'm just saying, all the love for Wendy. So George and I are talking about it this morning. Here's how the two of us see it slightly differently. George says that San Antonio is the more talented team. I would agree with that. I think the Knicks are the better team. They may not be as talented as Young. They may not have the freaky athlete, etc. I think, as you just pointed out, the Knicks have been building towards this. How do you see that between the two?
I think the Spurs have better top-end talent. Wembanyama, Castle, and Harper are a pretty damn impressive big three. By the way, they're all 22 or younger. I hope you enjoyed that, Laker fans. But I think the depth goes to the Knicks, at least the way they're playing. Now one of the things that has happened. So one of the things I'm seeing right now, George, is I'm seeing a little degrading of the Knicks powerhouse that we saw roll to 13 straight wins. And what I mean by that is Landry Shamet couldn't miss a shot for a month. And he went 1 of 9 the other day. Now, he may step right back on and go 4 out of 6 tonight. But all of a sudden, when the pass rotates around to Landry Shamet and he shoots like a minimum guy, not like a $25 million a year shooter, which is the way he's been shooting, looks a little different. The Karl Towns, generated offense. All of a sudden, that's eroded a little bit. That they're not getting to that. Towns is not getting into those positions. He's not, looking to aggressively do that. They don't have the off-ball movement. I'm just seeing them slip a little bit. Now, maybe they get into the film room, they go through their walkthrough this morning, they tighten all that up, they apply some oil, and we see that machine catch. But one of the things that I think where the Knicks have had the advantage, George, is that they've had 8 guys that they've been deploying on the court, and all 8 guys have been getting their jobs done at a very high level. And so that's why I think, Cappy, you're watching the Knicks and you're saying, man, this Knicks team is a better team. But George watched these two teams for 5 months, and it was the Spurs that were routinely playing at a higher level, which is why the Spurs won more games, and which is why the Spurs were favored. And so this is what's so fascinating about a 7-game series. And you guys have heard me go on my speech about how there's always time in the NBA, there's always time in series and games because it's a marathon, it's a test of endurance. Well, this Knicks run the endurance is being tested right now.
Yeah, I would agree. And what I would say to you is this: I think the changes that Mitch Johnson made, particularly defensively, I thought were incredibly impactful. Victor Wembanyama was basically told, and this is an oversimplification, obviously, basically told, what's that, Cappy?
I said thank you.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
I need the oversimplification.
Was basically told, you man the paint and you get out to the corners, okay? They're killing us from the corners. They're killing us in the paint. You got that. That is your area. And you know what? If they pump fake you and drive by you, we'll take the 2 instead of the 3 from the corner. And that was kind of the game plan. And I think that unless they're going to bring Victor Wembanyama up and call him up in the pick and roll every single time, he's still going to be able to have the ability to do that. And even then, they can still go into drop. I guess you could attack him in the drop. Now we're getting way too complicated for Cappy.
Yeah, come on, man.
But nonetheless, I just think that my notion, Brian, has been, and I think you and I talked about this maybe the other night when I saw you briefly, he's figuring it out. And when the best player figures it out, chances are his team is going to continue to win. It doesn't mean it's going to happen every time, obviously. It doesn't mean the Knicks can't, have an incredible performance tonight and Jalen Brunson can look like Jalen Brunson again, although I feel like I've been pretty steadfast in that he's not going to look like Jalen Brunson in this series. But I just feel confident that as Victor figures out the series on both ends of the floor, the rest of the game becomes easier for the rest of the Spurs.
Yeah, and so the other change that they made is they're not double-teaming Brunson as much. I think and like this, like the city for the last 2 days has been saying, hey, Jalen, don't go for the MVP performance. Stephen A was all over him after the game the other night saying he was looking for a signature game or whatever. Part of what happened was they just stopped double teaming him. And what was happening in games 1 and 2, they were bringing double teams and Brunson was killing him with it. He was throwing passes out of the double teams to Anunoby and to Bridges and to Shamet and Towns, and those guys were crushing the 3. I mean, I think those 4 guys in the first 2 games were shooting over 50% on threes. And so they said, listen, we can't do that anymore. We're not gonna double team as much, and we're gonna make Brunson. And that's why Brunson you saw him dribbling the ball a lot, because before his decision making was a little simpler. When the double team came, he passed out of it and into the blender the Knicks went, and they had great ball movement. Well, this time the Knicks or the Spurs stayed home more. And I think they like their chances on Brunson. Now, the funny thing about this is Brunson had his best game in Game 3. He was shooting like 33% in Games 1 and 2. Like, it wasn't going well. He actually shot 11 of 25 in Game 3. That's actually an improvement on what he was at. I know it didn't feel like it, but it was better. He had a couple of shots late in the Game 2 against single coverage, those 3-pointers that he made. And so that's part of what happened is that they're going to say, listen, instead of like selling out to stop him from beating us, we got to worry more about the role players and the rim. Yeah. And we'll see what happens tonight. I mean, I would say that the recipe is there for Brunson to have a big game, but maybe he can't against the Spurs defense.
And the other thing they did, if you noticed at the end of the game, they went with their 3-guard lineup and they took Champagnie out, who's played well, but defensively he's the weakest link. And then Jalen doesn't have – there's no weak link defensively for the Spurs with that lineup, with those three guards and Victor and Vassell. So it becomes a lot more challenging for Jalen and the rest of the team, for that matter, to score in those scenarios. And I think that between that and the adjustments they made with Victor, I'm genuinely curious to see what the next adjustment is. Josh Hart, I told this story earlier before you came on, Wendy. So we had Josh Hart yesterday as our Knicks player interview for the broadcast. And I asked him straight up, Jalen is scuffling at times. What can you do to help him? And first words out of his mouth is, we got to get him off the ball. And then we can help him from there. So this is not like some surprise that to them. Like, they know it. He knows it. Will he do it is the question. The other number I saw, I think Kirk Goldsberry had this number out there, which was he's played 2 more minutes than De'Aaron Fox in this series. Fox has 800 dribbles, and Brunson has 1,590 dribbles in this series. Like, he's just pounding the ball way too much. So Stephen A. is absolutely right. But it isn't just a Game 3 thing. It is a series thing, too.
Jalen Brunson has taken more dribbles over the last 3 years in the NBA than anybody in the league. This has been something that has happened. And they've had, look, this is the challenge. They've had moderate to good success with him doing that. They just haven't gone to the highest level until he stopped doing it as much. That is, they just want him to dribble a little bit less. They're not saying, Jalen, don't be yourself. They're just, they're just saying, don't do it as much. And so that's what it comes down to. And look, it's a difficult situation because you're walking the line a little bit. They are here in large part because of Jalen Brunson's heroics. The man won Clutch Player of the Year. He has won them dozens of games on give him the ball and let him make it happen. In Game 1, the shot that he hit, the incredible shot where his footwork went and he shot the ball, around Castle and like over the top of Wembanyama, that was Jalen Brunson in isolation, dribbling the ball 17 times and getting himself in the right spot and making it happen.
You saw Stephon Castle and what he told Malika about believing they can win the next 3, which means they could win 4 in a row. I know I'm going to sound crazy. I'm with him. Like, I think it's very possible. Like, you can convince me of that scenario being a real possibility here. Let's just talk about, that and what you've made of Stephon Castle. Because to me, he is the guy. We were enamored by Dylan Harper for a long time, as we should, particularly to start the series and what he did in the conference finals. I think Castle, granted, has another year of seasoning on him, but I think I don't know how much you've been around him, but the times I've been around him, I just feel like he's a throwback. Like, he is an old school type of mentality, or he has an old school type of mentality for a young player. I am blown away by his level of maturity. I don't know if he's the most mature guy, like Victor said, but because I feel like there are a lot of kids in that room. But he really just plays above, I believe, his age. Right? I think that he plays at a level that's definitely wise beyond his years.
Right, and the people here know it because they watched him do it at UConn. Okay,
right.
So we had these 2 big-time top of the drafts, right? We had the Victor draft and then the Cooper Flagg draft. And last year's draft was regarded as very good all around. But, and then in between there was this draft that was like, it's not great. That was, Zachary Richeche, number 1, Alex Sarr, number 2. Neither of them have really done much. Sarr's had a little bit more of an impact. Richeche was being benched in the playoffs this year. Number 3 was Reed Shepherd, who, they still have high hopes for in Houston, but, is a flawed player. And at number 4, the Spurs got Stephon Castle. And they had some luck in this lottery to get these 3 top 5 picks in a row, but they've also crushed these drafts. I mean, Victor was a no-brainer, but, they picked Harper, who's a great fit for what they have. And, they could have picked Edgecombe or, they could have gone a different direction, but they could have traded back. Certainly they had offers to trade back. Philly was trying to trade up to get up there. But within 5 minutes of them getting Castle, like, I remember talking to some of their coaches and executives coming out of Summer League, and they knew instantaneously. They were like, we got him. We got Victor's running mate. And it was like, okay, calm down, because he was viewed as a flawed player, right? Because he's not a good outside shooter, and there's a question about whether he could be a point guard. That was the whole thing. Could he play point guard? That was one of the reasons they went out and got De'Aaron Fox, because, they didn't see him as a pure point guard. But they knew right away. They saw his competitiveness and how he fit in the NBA game, and they go, this guy is an absolute stud, and he's turning into it. And that's the thing. You never assume anything, because a year ago we were saying, boy, are the Thunder going to win 4 or 5 titles in a row? After looking at, they were the youngest team to win the championship in like 40 years and all these things. So you never assume anything, but you certainly look at this Spurs front line of talent, at least, and you say, my God, they are headed for great stuff. And one of the reasons, George mentioned the last segment, the way they went small with basically a forward guard lineup in Victor. Well, the reason you can get away with that, number one, is that Victor can play almost 2 positions at once because of how big he is. And number two, Harper and Castle rebound. Now the Knicks are out rebounding the Spurs, but the Spurs are holding their own. They held their own, especially in Game 3, and that's one thing that I think the biggest difference I really think between Games 2 and 3 was that the Knicks got some offensive rebounds in the fourth quarter of Game 4 that gave them some extra shots that put them over the top. And in the fourth quarter of Game 3, Dylan Harper was doing kamikaze rebounds, and Castle was being tremendous on defense, made a couple of big shots, and that was the difference. But the rebounding was from those guys, from those wings, was really big.
So, Windy, we're talking a lot about what's going on the San Antonio side, and we are all blown away by Victor and Castle and Harper and how young they all are and the stage that they're on and the plays that they're making, et cetera. Okay, let's go back over to the Knicks side, though, because while we talk about Brunson and, how many shots he takes or how many dribbles he has and how other guys need to step up and make plays with him, to me, the whole key tonight for the Knicks is Karl Anthony Towns. Because in Games 1 and Games 2, we were all celebrating what Karl Anthony Towns had accomplished in the Knicks' 2 wins. But after Game 3, everybody was saying, well, Karl Anthony Towns either ran out of gas or got pushed around, whatever the criticism may have been. My question for you is this. If the Knicks are going to win tonight, what do they need to get out of Karl Anthony Towns that they did not in Game 3?
Well, he has no imprint on the game. So, I think Towns does not have to have 25 points and 15 rebounds, although he's certainly capable. But he has to apply pressure with his talent level to the Spurs. In Game 1 and 2, he was giving Wembanyama all kinds of problems because Wembanyama couldn't drive around him. They were leaving him in isolation defense, and Wembanyama couldn't deal with him. And basically, Wembanyama was trying to drive past him like he does against so many big guys. And Towns was like, "No, you're not going to get past me." And at the other end, Towns was going into his chest. And there was actually an incredible compliment paid to Karl Towns in Game 3 when the Spurs took Wembanyama off him. The unanimous defensive player of the year was told, you can't handle Karl Towns. Now, there was other strategic reasons, as George brought up. It was to make him more of a rover on defense, the corner and the paint. But what a beautiful compliment to his play. And so that meant he had smaller defenders on him, and he didn't take advantage of it. And part of the reason that the Knicks were going crazy about the